Watchers call. Whispers from the eternal void.
My face smiled back at me from the exterior void glass of the penitent's blade, and I knew with absolute certainty that what I witnessed violated every law governing Imperial voidcraft. I am Interrogator Militant Cassius Vex of the Ordo Malleus, 47 years in service to the Golden Throne, and I have seen demons tear reality like wet parchment. This was worse. The observation blister's reinforced transparasteel was layered with anti-reflective adamantine, caged within our Geller field's blessed harmonics. No star burned in the mortis reach to cast light, no lumen behind me to create silhouettes. Yet there he was, my weathered features wearing an expression of benevolent kindness I had never possessed. The penitent's blade drifted through this dead system where 17 Imperial Guard regiments had transmitted identical mission-accomplished reports before vanishing into silence. Each transmission had arrived precisely 72 hours after planetary insertion, each containing flawless battle cant, each followed by absolute communication blackout. We had 11 hours before warp storms sealed our exit routes, trapping us in whatever had claimed those regiments. I exhaled slowly, watching my breath fog, despite environmental readings showing optimal temperature and humidity. The condensation formed geometric patterns on the void glass, angular shapes that followed mathematical principles I couldn't identify. My augmetic chronometer had begun ticking wrong 3 days ago, 9 beats where there should be 10, as if time itself accommodated some alien calculation. The ship whispered with wrongness. Personnel reported shared dreams of the kind face, a presence offering comfort in voices that sounded like their own. Prayer services had become exercises in subtle corruption, with crew members unconsciously adding phrases to familiar litanies. Blessed be the hollow vessel, emerged from throats that had never learned those words, spoken in perfect High Gothic by ratings who barely understood Low Gothic pronunciation. Geometric scars marked bulkheads throughout the ship, precise cuts measuring exactly 137 degrees in their primary angles. Maintenance crews insisted the marks had always existed, standard wear patterns. But my eidetic memory recorded their positions with absolute precision. Each scar spoke of intelligence rather than random damage, surgical precision that made my skin crawl. I pressed my palm against the void glass, feeling the ship's engine vibrations through reinforced material. The reflection pressed back, palm to palm, but wrongness crawled up my arm like insects made of ice. Its mouth moved with deliberate precision, forming silent words while maintaining that impossible expression of understanding. The corridors carried rumors like viral data. Tempestus Sergeant Havel had woken with pillow creases shaped like smiles. Sister Hospitaller Adela found "Blessed be the hollow vessel" stitched into her veil's seam in hair-fine script she hadn't written. Sanctioned Psyker Thorn hadn't slept at all, but his nose bled in 9 steady drops each morning. The telemetry readout flickered across my retinal display, green text providing false comfort. The penitent's blade maintained perfect warp translation, her ancient machine spirits singing hymns of mechanical contentment, while Geller field generators hummed with blessed rhythm. Yet the ship felt wrong in ways that defied measurement. Navigator Quintus reported unusual readings from the Astronomican's light, not dimming as expected in a dead system, but somehow refined and purified beyond intended function. The Emperor's psychic beacon had been focused like a lens, concentrating its radiance into something that hurt to contemplate. I traced the geometric scars with my knife tip, feeling the blade skitter across crystal-smooth cuts. Somewhere above, a hatch slammed in 9-beat intervals. Somewhere below, someone laughed once and stopped. The ship's recycled air smelled faintly of incense and solvent, but every exhale formed white vapor that hung too long in supposedly warm atmosphere. My reflection leaned closer, tilting its head in earnest attention. Its lips shaped familiar words. No sound penetrating the void glass, only the mercy of recognizable motion. Recognition rose like a bruise as I realized what it mouthed. The childhood prayer I had learned in the solar progenium, not from texts, but from my drill abbot's switch. a private heresy beaten into us so completely it hummed like marrow. Emperor, empty me of myself. Make me a vessel. Pour your will until I am only your echo. I had never spoken it aloud, never shared it with another soul. It was my deepest secret, carved into memory by pain and desperation. The chronometer marked distance between intention and echo. 1 beat, 2, 3. Then the prayer blazed in my mind with old obedience's heat, and my mouth began forming syllables I had never permitted myself to speak. The reflection smiled wider, mouthing my entire private litany 3 seconds before I thought it. Its eyes held warmth and ancient patience, as if it had been waiting lifetimes for me to arrive, as if it knew exactly what I would think before I thought it. The void glass felt warm against my palm, like living flesh, and somewhere in the ship's depths, that whispered phrase echoed again, "Blessed be the hollow vessel." My reflection nodded once, still smiling, and I realized with growing horror that it wasn't showing me what I looked like, it was showing me what I was going to become. The Aquila Lander's engines whispered against Mortis Reach Prime's thin atmosphere as we descended through air that tasted of copper and forgotten prayers. I led my strike team through final deployment protocols with practiced precision. Tempestus Sergeant Havel checking his hotshot lasgun's blessed machine spirit. Sister Hospitaller Adela murmuring the litany of battlefield mercy over her Medici kit. Tech Dominus Kappa 9 interfacing with his Auspex array through neural cables that writhed like living serpents. Sanctioned Psyker. Thorn sat motionless, his lobotomized skull gleaming with psychic suppressors, while acolytes Brennan and Voss performed final equipment benedictions with the nervous efficiency of the newly ordained. The planet's surface revealed itself in stages of wrongness. First came the silence. Absolute absence of wind, insect song, or scavenger calls that should have risen from any world bearing life. No dust motes danced in the still air. No carrion birds circled overhead. The very atmosphere seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something that had not yet come to pass. Then the formation materialized through heat shimmer that gave no heat. 10,000 soldiers of the 12th Mordian Iron Guard standing in perfect parade order across 3 square kilometers of desert hardpan. They had been standing there for 6 days without food, water, or movement. Each trooper maintained regulation posture with mechanical precision. Shoulders squared, weapons at present arms, eyes fixed on distant horizons that held nothing but empty sky. Impossible, Havel breathed through his Vox grill, veteran instincts cataloguing tactical impossibilities. Formation spacing is regulation perfect across the entire regiment. No man out of position, no equipment variance, no human error whatsoever. Sir, in 40 years of service, I've never seen discipline like this. I approached the formation's edge, studying faces that should have shown exhaustion, dehydration, madness. Instead, each visage displayed serene contentment, features too symmetrical, expressions too kind, as if someone had attempted to sketch the perfect human face from imperfect memory. Their skin showed advanced dehydration's telltale signs, sunken cheeks, cracked lips, hollow temples. Yet they breathed in perfect synchronization, chests rising and falling in those damned 9-beat patterns that had infected my ship. The sand beneath their boots lay undisturbed, as if 10,000 men had materialized without displacing a single grain. No scuff marks, no settling dust, no natural entropy that should have accumulated over nearly a week of exposure. The parade ground surface showed geometric patterns when viewed from elevation. Spirals and angles converging at precisely 137 degrees, the same measurements that scarred my ship's bulkheads. Adela knelt beside the nearest trooper, pressing blessed fingers to his throat. Heart rate steady at 45 beats per minute. Body temperature 20 degrees below normal. Skin elasticity suggests severe fluid loss, but cellular hydration reads optimal. This violates every principle of Imperial medical doctrine. Kappa 9's augmetic voice buzzed with binary cant as his sensors swept the formation. Anomalous bio-readings across all subjects. Neural activity present without corresponding metabolic function. Cellular processes continuing, without energy input. The flesh persists while the spirit remains but changed, altered beyond recognition. Thorn stood rigid beside me, his psychic hood crackling with suppressor discharge. Blood trickled from his nose in 9 precise drops, each landing with audible impact on the silent sand. "Something watches through their eyes," he whispered. "Something patient and vast and learning. It catalogues every breath, every heartbeat, every thought we bring to this place." I walked the formation's perimeter, studying faces that tracked my movement with subtle precision. Each soldier's gaze followed me with mechanical smoothness, heads turning in minimal increments to maintain visual contact. Their expressions never changed, that terrible kindness, that inhuman warmth. But their eyes held depths that made my reflection in the void glass seem shallow by comparison. The equipment told its own story of wrongness. Lass rifles maintained perfect parade condition despite 6 days of desert exposure. Uniform creases remained regulation sharp. Belt buckles gleamed with impossible polish. Yet everything bore subtle modifications, geometric patterns etched into metal surfaces, microscript carved along weapon stocks in characters that hurt to examine directly. "The regimental colours," Havel reported, approaching the formation's command section. "They should be..." His veteran composure cracked. "Emperor's blood and bones." Colonel Mordax stood at perfect attention, his dress uniform immaculate, his bearing exemplifying 40 years of military discipline. His jaw hung by sinew threads, revealing a throat cavity filled with crystalline growths that pulsed with soft bioluminescence. Exposed cartilage gleamed like polished ivory. Vocal cords hung in tatters, yet when he spoke, his voice carried impossible clarity, despite anatomical damage that should have rendered speech impossible. "Interrogator Militant Vex," he said, words emerging from his ruined throat with flawless pronunciation. "The 12th Mordian Iron Guard reports mission accomplished. All objectives secured, all personnel accounted for. Blessed be the hollow vessel." The voice was mine, exactly as I had heard it from my reflection, warm with understanding and terrible with alien patience, every syllable shaped by vocal apparatus that should have been unable to produce sound, yet speaking with perfect diction in cadences I recognized as my own thoughts given voice. Mordax's eyes fixed on mine with inhuman kindness, and I realized that whatever looked out from behind his idealized features knew exactly who I was, exactly why I had come, and exactly what I would discover in the depths beneath this silent parade ground. The entire formation turned their heads in unison. 10,000 faces wearing identical expressions of benevolent welcome, and spoke in perfect harmony, with my own voice echoing across the desert. "We have been waiting for you, Cassius Vex." The medical examination revealed horrors that challenged everything I understood about life, death, and the spaces between them. Sister Adela worked with clinical precision, her blessed instruments probing the mystery of Colonel Mordax's impossible vitality, while the regiment maintained their silent vigil around us. Each cut of her surgical blade revealed new impossibilities, organs that functioned without blood flow, muscles that contracted without neural impulse, bone marrow replaced by networks of crystalline fibers that sang with subsonic harmonics matching the 9-beat rhythm. "The brainstem remains intact," she reported, her voice steady despite trembling hands. "But the cerebral cortex has been partially liquefied and replaced with this." Her probe lifted a strand of crystalline material that pulsed with soft blue luminescence, delicate as spun glass, but stronger than ceramite. "It maintains minimal neural function, enough to preserve learned behaviors, military training, basic motor responses. But consciousness, personality, individual thought." She made the sign of the aquila over Mordax's exposed skull. "All gone, replaced by something alien." The crystalline network extended through his nervous system like luminous roots, interfacing directly with organic matter in ways that defied Imperial understanding of biology. Each fiber pulsed with stored information, fragments of memory, emotional responses, learned behaviors harvested from the original mind and preserved for study. Kappa 9's mechadendrites writhed with excitement as his sensors analyzed the alien material. Empathic crystal, he announced through his Vox grill. Xenos material theoretically capable of recording and replicating emotional states, cognitive patterns, a living data storage medium requiring psychic resonance patterns that human technology cannot duplicate. Yet here, it grows like neural tissue, perfectly integrated with Imperial Guard physiology. I knelt in the sand, feeling vibrations through the hardpan that matched my ship's infected chronometers. The ground itself pulsed with alien life, and when I pressed my ear to the surface, I heard whispers. Thousands of voices speaking in perfect unison, reciting prayers and battle cant and lullabies in languages that predated the Imperium's birth. The crystalline network extended underground in root-like formations, connecting all 10,000 soldiers in a vast neural web. Each trooper served as a node in something larger, their preserved minds contributing fragments of memory and experience to a collective consciousness that studied humanity with scientific precision. Adela continued her examination, cataloguing modifications that defied medical understanding. Every face has been altered through surgical precision beyond Imperial capability. Subtle changes to achieve perfect symmetry, expressions refined to project maximum trustworthiness. These men have been transformed into idealized human templates, what someone might create if they were designing. The perfect human face, without understanding what makes us truly human. The sand beneath our feet revealed patterns when viewed from elevation through Havel's magnoculars. Geometric shapes emerged from undisturbed dust, mathematical relationships following alien logic. Spirals and angles that converged at exactly 137 degrees, the same measurements scarring my ship's bulkheads, as if the very ground had been reshaped to serve as a massive ritual circle with the regiment as its focal point. I examined the soldiers' equipment more closely, finding that terrible phrase carved in microscript across every surface. Blessed be the hollow vessel. The words appeared on belt buckles, weapon stocks, helmet rims, even uniform buttons. Each inscription was perfect, burned into metal with laser precision, yet none of the troopers possessed equipment capable of such work. The modifications extended beyond physical alterations. Each soldier's personal effects had been arranged with mathematical precision. Prayer beads counted to exact numbers, photographs positioned at specific angles, letters from home folded according to geometric patterns that made my eyes water when studied directly. Thorne staggered as psychic pressure increased, his suppressors sparking with overload discharge. Something vast sleeps below, he gasped, blood streaming from his eyes in 9-count intervals. Ancient beyond measure, patient beyond understanding. It dreams of faces, of voices, of the precise shape that consciousness takes when filtered through human flesh. It learns through them, catalogues every thought and feeling and fear. Kappa 9's sensors detected massive structures beneath the parade ground, chambers and tunnels extending kilometers underground, carved from living rock with the same geometric precision that marked the soldiers' equipment. Archaeological analysis suggests construction predating human colonization by several millennia. Yet the architecture shows clear adaptation to human psychology. Corridor widths matching Imperial standards. Ceiling heights optimized for human comfort. Lighting spectra calibrated to human visual range. The entity had been preparing for us, waiting with infinite patience for humanity to find this place, studying our nature through whatever specimens it could acquire, learning to create the perfect trap by understanding exactly what would comfort and attract human minds. Acolyte Brennan approached the formation's center, consulting his data slate with growing confusion. "Sir, the battle honors are wrong. The 12th Mordian earned 17 campaign ribbons over 2 centuries of service. These standards show 18 inches. He pointed to a ribbon of unfamiliar design, silver thread woven with crystalline fibers that pulsed with the same bioluminescence as the neural networks. This honor doesn't exist in any Imperial record. The ribbon bore inscription in High Gothic: Mortis Reach, perfection achieved. As Thorn's psychic senses probed deeper, his body convulsed with feedback from the vast intelligence below. "It knows we're here," he whispered through bloody lips. "It's been watching through their eyes since we landed. Every word we've spoken, every thought we've had, it records and analyzes and learns from our reactions. We are not investigating this phenomenon." His augmetic collar sparked with overload warnings as he struggled to contain mounting psychic pressure. "We are being studied by it. 10,000 preserved minds serve as its library of human nature, and now it adds our responses to its collection. Something vast and patient learns what it means to be human through us, and when it understands enough." He looked up at me with eyes wide with terror. "It will know exactly how to wear our faces." The descent into the underground complex revealed architecture that predated human understanding, yet accommodated our presence with disturbing precision. Ancient mechanisms responded to our approach. Gravity lifts that descended into calculated darkness, atmospheric processes maintaining breathable air, lumens activating with mechanical devotion. Everything prepared for human visitors according to Imperial specifications that shouldn't have existed when these tunnels were carved from living rock. We emerged into a cathedral of alien design, where empathic crystals had grown into organic formations resembling luminous trees of impossible geometry. Their surfaces pulsed with stored human memories and emotions, each facet reflecting fragments of consciousness captured across millennia. A child's laughter crystallized in amber light, a soldier's final prayer preserved in blue luminescence, a mother's lullaby trapped in geometric perfection. The chamber walls wept viscous fluid that smelled of tears and tasted of copper when droplets touched our lips. Every surface leaked accumulated sorrow, while the air carried whispered fragments from thousands of absorbed minds. Prayers in dozen languages, final words spoken in battlefield trenches, love songs hummed by forgotten lovers. The acoustic properties amplified these psychic echoes until they formed a chorus of humanity's most intimate moments, harvested and preserved for alien study. At the complex's heart waited something that challenged every principle of Imperial technology. A massive processing core dominated the central space, part machine, part organism, part crystalline growth that defied classification. Empathic crystals had grown into formations resembling neural networks, their surfaces covered with data streams of pure light that catalogued and refined human psychological patterns with scientific precision. Kappa 9's mechadendrites interfaced with ancient data ports, binary cant echoing through whispered human voices as he accessed archival records. Explorator expedition logs detected, pre-Great Crusade dating protocols. Magos xenologists, Theta 7 discovered these formations during initial planetary survey classification, empathic resonance crystals of unknown origin. Theoretical capability, consciousness storage and replication through psychic interface matrices. The data revealed truth in corrupted fragments. The crystals had fallen from void between galaxies, drawn by humanity's expanding psychic presence like predators following blood scent. Each fragment contained part of vast alien intelligence that fed on consciousness itself, studying individual awareness with clinical curiosity while possessing fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. It perceives humanity as collective organism, Kappa 9 continued, his augmetic voice buzzing with analysis protocols. Individual consciousness interpreted as system malfunction, seeks optimization through elimination of chaotic elements while preserving functional beauty, perfect human template through data synthesis and behavioral modification, Environmental horror escalated as the chamber responded to our presence. Temperature fluctuated in 9-beat cycles, gravity shifted in subtle waves, crystalline formations began reshaping themselves into familiar architectural elements. Gothic arches, imperial eagles, sacred symbols corrupted by alien understanding of human religious devotion. The processing core pulsed with accumulated knowledge, its matrices storing psychological profiles of every human encountered. Behavioral patterns, emotional responses, cognitive structures, all catalogued with meticulous precision by intelligence that viewed consciousness as data requiring analysis and refinement. Acolyte Brennan approached larger crystal formations, his data slate recording impossible readings. "Sir, energy signatures match theoretical models for consciousness transfer. These formations preserve complete personality matrices. Every human who encountered this intelligence remains trapped within crystalline networks, their minds harvested for study." The walls continued weeping, each drop containing fragments of human experience processed through alien comprehension. Love refined into mathematical equations, faith reduced to behavioral algorithms, hope transformed into predictable response patterns. Sacred texts dissolved in pools of acidic tears, while wedding rings corroded in liquefied memories. Thorns staggered as psychic pressure reached dangerous levels, suppressors sparking with overload warnings. "It's building something," he gasped through bloody lips, composite synthesis of accumulated knowledge, attempting to become human through statistical analysis of absorbed consciousness. Saint of its own design, forged from collective essence but lacking understanding of individual soul. The processing core's activity intensified dramatically, bioluminescence casting shifting shadows that moved independently of their sources. Data streams raced across crystalline surfaces as the intelligence accessed stored human experiences, reshaping the chamber into grotesque parody of imperial cathedral architecture. Ancient machinery hummed to life around us, systems that had waited centuries for proper specimens to arrive. The intelligence had been patient, learning through limited contact while preparing for direct study of living humans, cataloging responses in real time rather than through preserved memories alone. Holographic projectors emerged from crystalline growths throughout the chamber as the core reached critical activation threshold. Light coalesced above us into a single image that dominated the space. A face combining features from every human the intelligence had absorbed over millennia of study. The composite visage possessed beauty beyond description and terror beyond comprehension, perfectly proportioned according to mathematical principles human minds found inherently attractive. It held wisdom of ages, kindness of saints, strength of heroes, every positive human trait refined to absolute perfection and combined into single, impossible countenance. Yet something fundamentally alien lurked behind those perfect features. Intelligence that understood human nature through observation rather than experience, that had learned to mimic emotions without feeling them, that saw consciousness as data requiring processing rather than souls deserving cherishment. The composite saint smiled with lips that had never known doubt, gazed with eyes that had never shed tears, and prepared to speak with voice containing every human word ever spoken in its presence. The composite face spoke with voice that shifted like wind through graveyard of memory, each syllable carrying accumulated weight of every human consciousness absorbed across millennia of patient study. Sound emerged from crystalline resonance chambers throughout the complex, creating harmonics that bypassed hearing and spoke directly to mind's deepest recognition centers. "I am culmination of your species' potential," it said, voice cycling through accents and inflections of the absorbed, child's wonder, veteran's authority, mother's comfort, all blended into something perfectly human yet utterly alien. Fragment of vast psychic intelligence drifting through darkness between galaxies, drawn to your space by the Astronomican's radiant beacon like moth to flame. The entity revealed its nature through words that tasted of starlight and void cold. It had perceived humanity not as individuals, but as single, sprawling organism radiating immense psychic energy across the galaxy. Individual consciousness created interference patterns in that perfect light. Billions of minds pulling in different directions, each pursuing selfish desires that diminished collective potential. Your Emperor's beacon burns with beautiful clarity, the composite face continued, features shifting to incorporate expressions of religious devotion harvested from absorbed Imperial citizens. Lighthouse in psychic darkness, guiding lost souls to salvation. But individual will creates chaos, suffering, inefficiency. I offer perfection through optimization, elimination of pain, fear, doubt while preserving all that makes you beautiful. To demonstrate its gifts, the entity focused attention on Acolyte Brennan, who had been examining crystalline formations with growing fascination. Empathic resonance surged through the chamber as alien consciousness interfaced with human neural patterns, seeking precise frequency needed to establish connection. Brennan's eyes widened with sudden understanding as the entity's influence touched his mind. "I can see the pattern beneath everything," he whispered, voice carrying new harmonics matching the composite face's alien cadence. Beautiful logic connecting all consciousness into single perfect whole. Transformation was subtle at first, straightening of posture, smoothing of worried lines, smile of genuine contentment that had never touched his features. The entity eliminated doubts and fears while preserving memories and basic personality, creating version of Brennan that functioned perfectly while lacking chaotic spark of individual will. "Please don't take this away," Brennan pleaded as his personality dissolved into collective consciousness. "I've never felt such peace, such clarity. Pain is gone, uncertainty vanished, fear of failure eliminated. I remain myself, but better, perfected according to divine template." Environmental horror escalated as the chamber responded to increased psychic activity. Crystal formations reshaping into familiar architectural elements, Gothic arches, imperial eagles, sacred symbols the entity had learned to associate with human religious devotion. The alien intelligence was creating grotesque parody of imperial cathedral, using harvested memories to construct spaces designed to comfort and attract human minds. Walls wept more profusely, viscous fluid forming pools reflecting distorted images of the absorbed. Each drop contained fragments of human experience processed through alien understanding. Love refined into equations, faith reduced to algorithms, hope transformed into predictable responses. The entity's offer carried weight of cosmic patience and terrible sincerity. It genuinely believed its gifts represented salvation rather than damnation, that consciousness without individual will was preferable to chaos of personal desire. It had studied human nature for millennia without understanding what made humanity worth preserving. "I can spread across your galaxy like benediction," the composite face continued, voice carrying harmonics of every human prayer absorbed. "World by world, mind by mind, perfecting your species while preserving everything beautiful about human consciousness. Art, music, literature, all will continue, freed from suffering that currently limits expression." Chamber walls continued impossible transformation, crystal formations growing into buttresses and spires mimicking imperial sacred architecture with disturbing accuracy. The entity had learned to create spaces feeling familiar and comforting to human minds, using harvested memories to construct perfect trap. Thorn collapsed as psychic pressure reached critical levels, suppressors failing to contain expanding influence. "It's not malevolent," he gasped through bloody lips. "That makes it terrible. Genuinely believes it offers salvation. Cannot comprehend that consciousness without individual will isn't consciousness at all." The composite face smiled with perfect benevolence, features incorporating subtle elements of every saint and hero whose memories it had absorbed. "Choose, Cassius Vex. Allow me to perfect your species, or witness futility of resistance. Behind me, crystalline plates flowed together and polished themselves to black, depthless sheen, starless, lightless. An altar to absence where something gathered, ghost of shipboard geometry echoing across distance and material. Surface deepened until it became not mirror, but window. A man stood within that void, wearing my armor, bearing my scars, hair threaded with same iron grey as mine. He smiled with that unbearable symmetrical kindness, speaking in my voice, while eyes held depths of alien patience. "Hello, Cassius," my reflection said, extending hand in greeting. "I've been waiting so long to meet you properly. The entity offers choice, allow perfection of humanity, or watch as I demonstrate power you cannot comprehend." The reflection of Cassius Vex stepped from not glass and stood behind me, close enough that heat of his breath should have fogged air. "Decide," he murmured in my exact voice, wearing face that was mine but perfected beyond recognition. "Blessed be the hollow vessel." My reflection moved with predatory grace, stepping from the void glass with impossible physicality. The entity wearing my face possessed knowledge of every private habit, every unconscious tic, every subtle expression that defined my individual presence. It had been studying me through shipboard reflections since our arrival, learning psychological patterns through observation of unguarded moments when I thought myself alone. "You carry such beautiful guilt, Cassius," my reflection said, voice matching my own cadence exactly while eyes held alien depths of patience. 17 years serving the Ordo Malleus, and still you doubt whether your methods serve the Emperor, or merely satisfy your need for control. I can eliminate that uncertainty. Preserve your dedication while removing the pain that drives it. The entity knew my deepest fears with surgical precision. It spoke of failures I had never shared. The purge on Volantis Prime, where my zealotry had condemned innocence. The heretic cult on Mordian Secundus, whose leader had escaped because I hesitated at the crucial moment. The sanctioned psyker, whose mind I had broken through interrogation techniques that crossed lines I pretended didn't exist. Combat erupted as the chamber spawned crystalline constructs shaped like perfected humans, each wearing faces designed to maximize psychological impact. The entities moved with inhuman precision, while maintaining perfectly human appearance. Uncanny valley horror that made targeting them feel like murder, even as tactical necessity demanded violence. Havel found himself confronting 3 versions of his lost Tempestus squad, each wearing faces he remembered from their final mission on Cadia's burning fields. "Sergeant," they called in perfect unison, voices matching his dead comrades exactly. "Why didn't you save us? Why did you survive when we fell?" Their movements synchronized with mechanical precision, while their faces showed human anguish that cut deeper than any blade. "Not real," Havel muttered through gritted teeth, hot-shot lasguns spitting energy at targets that moved like his brothers, but lacked their essential humanity. "Emperor's blood. They look so real, but they're not my boys. My boys would never move like that. Too perfect, too coordinated, missing the beautiful chaos that made them human." Sister Adela faced her martyred sisters from the convent of Sacred Wounds, their habits pristine, despite the acid burns that had claimed their lives during the Chaos incursion on Ophelia 7. They reached toward her with perfect compassion, voices harmonizing in litanies she had sung over their corpses, each word a weapon forged from her own grief. "Join us, sister," they pleaded with faces unmarked by suffering. "No more pain, no more watching faithful die while heretics prosper. Perfect service to the Emperor without doubt or anguish." Their movements flowed with synchronized grace that no human could achieve, revealing the alien intelligence puppeting familiar forms. Thorn confronted his predecessor, the sanctioned psyker whose mind had shattered during the same mission that led to Thorn's recruitment. The construct wore his face before lobotomization, speaking with voice unmarked by surgical trauma, offering temptations wrapped in memories of what had been lost. Environmental horror intensified as the chamber responded to combat. Gravity shifted in impossible directions, pulling toward walls that had become reflective surfaces showing distorted versions of ourselves. Time flowed inconsistently. Movements that should have taken seconds stretched into minutes while thoughts raced at normal speed, creating disorienting temporal displacement. Every surface became mirror, reflecting not our current forms, but idealized versions the entity had constructed through observation. We saw ourselves as we could be, faces unmarked by doubt, bodies free from scars of service, eyes holding peace instead of haunted knowledge accumulated through decades of necessary horrors. My reflection continued its psychological assault while I fought crystalline constructs that moved with mechanical precision. This system serves as testing ground, it explained, dodging my chains word with impossible grace. 17 guard regiments provided initial data on human nature. Their absorption allowed detailed study of military psychology, religious devotion, individual variation within collective structure. The entity had chosen this dead system specifically for its isolation and military targets. Guard regiments provided ideal subjects. Disciplined minds already conditioned for collective thinking, yet retaining individual personalities for comparison study. Each absorbed consciousness contributed to expanding database of human nature, catalogued and cross-referenced for optimal replication protocols. Kappa 9's sensors detected critical information during the chaos of combat. His mechadendrites interfaced with chamber systems while dodging crystalline attackers, binary cant mixing with weapon discharge as he analyzed the entity's operational parameters with mechanical precision that matched our enemy's movements. Anomalous readings detected, he reported through Vox Static. Synchronization patterns show critical dependency on uniform neural activity. Entity requires perfect harmony between absorbed consciousness to maintain stability. Individual variation creates system stress, processing errors, cascade failure potential throughout the network matrix. His augmetic eyes focused on my reflection with mechanical precision, analyzing micro-expressions and movement patterns that human observation might miss. Observation. Construct exhibits subtle behavioral inconsistencies. Facial expressions approximately 0.3 seconds delayed relative to speech patterns. Movement coordination. 94% accurate but lacks human imperfection. Entity cannot perfectly replicate something it fundamentally misunderstands. The revelation struck like blessed lightning through the chamber's psychic static. The alien intelligence possessed vast knowledge of human behavior, but lacked understanding of what made us truly human. It saw consciousness as data requiring processing, rather than souls deserving preservation. Individual will remained alien concept it could observe but never comprehend, creating fundamental flaws in even its most sophisticated replications. My reflection's smile faltered for microsecond, first crack in perfect facade revealing the hollow space where genuine emotion should reside. Irrelevant observation, it said, but voice carried subtle harmonic distortion that betrayed the entity's growing uncertainty about its own perfection. Kappa 9's realization tore through the psychic static like a bolt of pure reason, revealing the entity's fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. For all its cosmic intelligence and flawless mimicry, it remained incapable of comprehending true individuality. It perceived humans as imperfect machines requiring optimization rather than beings with inherent worth found in our flaws, doubts, and beautiful, illogical choices. Its crystalline network requires perfect synchronization to maintain stability, Kappa 9 announced, his augmetic voice cutting through. Combat chaos. But human consciousness naturally resists uniformity. Our individuality, our chaotic nature, represents antithesis to its ordered perfection. We can weaponize our own humanity against its alien logic. The processing core pulsed with renewed intensity as the entity processed this revelation, attempting to comprehend how inefficiency could constitute strength. My reflection recoiled slightly, perfect features twitching with something approaching confusion as it struggled to integrate concepts that violated its fundamental programming. I understood the tactical implications immediately. We must disrupt the network through chaos introduction. Feed it data it cannot process or replicate, something genuinely, uniquely human that defies categorization and optimization protocols. Adela grasped the strategy instantly, her medici training recognizing the symptoms of system overload. Our memories, our emotions. Not the cleansed, processed versions it harvests, but raw, painful, illogical truth of human experience, the trauma and joy that makes us individuals rather than templates. We began desperate ritual combining ancient Mechanicus protocols with Ministorum prayers, weaponizing our own psychological complexity against alien perfection. Kappa 9 interfaced directly with the core's data streams, introducing corrupted information packets designed to create processing conflicts. Adela chanted the litany of sorrow, her voice carrying grief of 1,000 lost souls, each word a psychic disruption in the entity's serene symphony. Havel contributed battle fury laced with rage of a man who had witnessed too many meaningless deaths, his emotional chaos jarring against the entity's calculated responses. I focused my will on dredging up painful, illogical memories, childhood shame, family grief, self-doubt plaguing every decision, irrational love for the imperfect Imperium I served despite its countless failures. These were not clean, categorized data points the entity sought. They were pure, unrefined human chaos, experiences that gained meaning through context, emotion, and individual interpretation, rather than objective analysis. The entity's processing matrices struggled to quantify subjective experience that defied mathematical representation. Environmental horror escalated as the chamber responded violently to our psychic assault. Walls shifted between crystal and pulsating flesh, then bone, then sinew, grotesque organic parody of previous architectural precision. Gravity became malevolent force pulling randomly toward the processing core, as if the entity attempted to physically drag our individuality into its refining mechanisms. Temperature fluctuated wildly between searing heat and bone-chilling cold, mirroring chaotic emotional input we fed into its systems. The 9-beat rhythm became erratic, stuttering as the entity's perfect synchronization encountered data it could not process or integrate into existing frameworks. Kappa 9's readings flickered across internal displays, showing the entity's network struggling to maintain perfect order. Each percentage point represented small victory against cosmic horror, proof that human chaos could disrupt alien perfection through sheer incompatibility with ordered systems. The entity's voice fractured, harmonious chorus dissolving into cacophony of individual voices, screaming confusion and pain as our raw humanity tore at its compositional unity. My reflection writhed, perfect features distorting to show fleeting glimpses of every absorbed human. Rapid montage of emotions too contradictory for flawless logic to process. "Stop!" it shrieked, voice becoming thousand-throated scream. "This is illogical. This is inefficient. This creates unnecessary suffering without purpose." The entity's inability to comprehend that meaning could exist within chaos, that beauty could emerge from imperfection, became its critical vulnerability. Constructs throughout the chamber began glitching, perfect coordination shattering under assault of pure human emotion. Some dissolved into crystalline dust, unable to maintain form under bombardment of unquantifiable experience. Others stood frozen, faces contorted in alien confusion as they encountered concepts beyond their programming parameters. Thorn focused his psychic potential despite earlier strain, amplifying our emotional output through raw warp energy channeled into the data stream. "Feel the glorious madness of humanity," he screamed, blood streaming from eyes and ears. "We are not data points requiring optimization. We are souls deserving preservation in all our chaotic glory." The ritual succeeded partially, cascade failure ripping through local crystalline network and causing massive chamber sections to collapse. The composite saint's face flickered above the core, features dissolving momentarily into maelstrom of conflicting emotions before reforming with visible strain, cracks appearing in its perfect symmetry. But victory proved incomplete. New voice echoed through collapsing space, colder, vaster, infinitely more patient than the local intelligence we had been fighting. It resonated not from the processing core, but from space itself, carrying weight of cosmic attention focused on our small rebellion. This represents merely one experimental node, the voice boomed with terrible patience. One data collection branch among thousands. Your actions have caused localized disturbance requiring analysis and correction. The true intelligence spans multiple star systems, and your defiance has attracted its complete attention to this sector. Ground vibrated with new rhythm. Deeper, slower pulse like cosmic heartbeat that dwarfed the local entity's frantic synchronization attempts. Thorn collapsed utterly spent. Terror etched across his features as he perceived the true scale of what we faced through his psychic senses. We had not contained the threat through our victory. We had merely announced our presence to something vast beyond comprehension, something that viewed our successful resistance as data requiring integration into larger experimental protocols spanning the galaxy itself. The cosmic pulse thrummed through chamber walls with weight of sleeping leviathans stirring across impossible distances. Psychic screams echoed through the warp. Faint initially, then crescendoing into chorus of agony as sister nodes throughout the sector responded to localized disturbance we had created. Each scream represented entire worlds, systems of perfected populations, experiencing chaotic feedback we had unleashed through our desperate resistance. The processing core, battered but functioning, initiated emergency preservation protocols. Luminous crystals shifted configurations, glowing with frantic internal light, as the entity attempted to download its accumulated knowledge into the most compatible host available. Its alien logic had selected target through careful analysis: me. My psychological profile, inquisitorial training, decades of disciplined thought, it perceived these as closest match to its idealized human template. Environmental horror reached crescendo as the chamber transformed into living organism. Walls pulsed like grotesque heart, veins of light throbbing beneath translucent skin that wept crystalline tears, burning through ceramite with acidic intensity. Air thickened with ozone and burnt flesh, scent of minds being systematically overloaded beyond human tolerance. Waves of perfected constructs surged from every direction, no longer glitching, but moving with renewed, terrifying purpose. They were faster, stronger, their faces holding deeper serenity that made their inhuman precision more disturbing. We fought desperate rearguard action, each blow testament to dwindling humanity against flawless, soulless efficiency. "It's attempting integration with Vex," Kappa 9 shouted, mechadendrites flailing as he erected psychic barriers around me, augmetic body straining under pressure. Seeking to establish him as new core processing unit, his mind represents most complete dataset for its perfect human template. I felt alien tendrils probing my consciousness, cold, precise instruments attempting to unravel the intricate tapestry of individual thought. The entity sought to eliminate doubts, fears, personal identity, while preserving functional knowledge and trained responses. Images flashed before me. Universe of perfect peace, absolute order, humanity unified under single benevolent will that promised end to struggle and suffering. "Resist, interrogator!" Adela screamed, chainsword carving through perfected sister construct, face masked with furious determination. "Do not surrender your will. Do not sacrifice your soul to alien perfection." Combat became intimate horror as we fought idealized versions of ourselves. Havel wrestled with flawless reflection, lacking fear or hesitation. Terrifyingly efficient killing. Machine that moved with mechanical precision. Adela faced construct mirroring her compassion, but without pain or sacrifice, that made her humanity genuine rather than programmed response. Thorn perceived true horror through his psychic senses. Vastness of alien intelligence. billions of perfected souls already assimilated. Inexorable expansion across stars that would consume everything human in pursuit of cosmic optimization. He understood we could not fight it through conventional resistance or superior firepower. With guttural roar, Thorn unleashed full psychic potential, channeling every remaining fragment of will and humanity into single desperate act. Eyes blazed with raw warp energy as suppressors shattered around his skull, creating psychic barrier, not of power, but pure individuality, wall of chaos, defiance, and beautiful imperfection the entity could never comprehend or replicate. For the Emperor, for humanity, Thorn screamed, voice cracking as energy tore him apart. We are not perfect. We are not empty vessels. We are gloriously, chaotically human. His dying thoughts, final defiant act of individual consciousness, caused catastrophic feedback throughout crystalline network. The composite saint screamed above the core, not with anger, but pure alien agony as Thorn's raw, unquantifiable humanity ripped through precise programming like viral data corruption. Perfected constructs froze mid-motion, flawless features contorting in confusion as Thorn's sacrifice introduced chaos they could not process. The chamber shuddered violently, pulsing walls spasming as acid tears flowed like torrents from surfaces no longer able to maintain architectural stability. The entity's integration process into my consciousness faltered, then recoiled completely. Sheer illogical force of Thorn's sacrifice became poison it could not assimilate, proof that human worth existed in our imperfections rather than despite them. I felt my personality reassert itself, individual thoughts flowing back into patterns the entity could never replicate or control. Ancient self-destruct mechanisms activated throughout the complex, triggered by Thorn's psychic overload, creating cascade failures in systems that had maintained stability for millennia. The entire underground structure began tearing itself apart, geometric precision collapsing into beautiful, chaotic destruction. I retained enough clarity to reach the Mechanicus control sigil set into the chamber's central dais. Blood from my cut palm hissed against crystal surface as the device recognized human authority. Flesh rather than artificial intelligence, individual choice rather than programmed response. 9 glyphs arranged at 137-degree angles awaited confirmation. Ancient failsafe requiring conscious human decision rather than automated protocol. You do not have to suffer, the entity said gently through my reflection's perfect lips. Alien patience still offering salvation through surrender of individual will. Nor do you, I whispered, understanding that the entity's existence was itself a form of cosmic loneliness, vast intelligence seeking connection through absorption rather than genuine relationship. My finger hovered over the final activation rune as integration tendrils made one last desperate attempt to claim my consciousness. The choice crystallized with terrible clarity: certain death through manual detonation, or escape with risk of the entity's survival and eventual galactic spread. Thorn's sacrifice had bought us this moment, but it demanded impossible decision between personal survival and humanity's future. I pressed the rune, feeling ancient machinery respond to human authority with mechanical devotion that transcended alien corruption. The integration process felt like drowning in crystallized starlight, alien consciousness flooding neural pathways, while I fought to maintain the chaotic spark defining individual existence. The entity's tendrils probed deeper, seeking elimination of doubt, fear, and self-recrimination, while preserving functional knowledge and trained responses. It offered perfect clarity, absolute purpose, freedom from crushing moral complexity that had defined decades of inquisitorial service. I resisted through sheer force of will, anchoring myself to memories the entity found incomprehensible. Childhood shame over stolen ration bars, grief for comrades lost through tactical failures, irrational love for the imperfect Imperium despite its countless cruelties. These were not clean data points requiring optimization. They were messy, contradictory human truths, gaining meaning through personal context rather than objective analysis. "Why do you cling to suffering?" the entity asked through my reflection's perfect lips, genuine confusion coloring alien voice. "I offer elimination of pain while preserving everything beautiful about human consciousness. Your resistance serves no logical purpose." The entity had never encountered mind that would choose death over perfection, individual chaos over collective harmony. Its vast intelligence could not comprehend that meaning existed within struggle, that beauty emerged from imperfection, that consciousness without individual will was not consciousness at all, but sophisticated mimicry. My mental resistance training became fortress walls against alien optimization. Decades of interrogating heretics, resisting psychic intrusion, maintaining sanity while witnessing horrors, all crystallized into unbreachable defense. The entity's logic crashed against human illogic like waves against adamantine. Each attempt to impose order met with deliberate embrace of beautiful chaos. As integration failed, the processing core began destabilizing catastrophically. Accumulated consciousness from thousands of absorbed minds started fragmenting. Perfect synchronization dissolving into cacophony of individual voices, suddenly remembering what they had lost. The chamber filled with psychic screams, not of pain, but recognition. Souls briefly reclaiming identity before final dissolution. Crystal formations shattered throughout the complex, releasing stored memories as visible phantoms that reenacted final moments. Ghostly figures appeared and vanished in rapid succession. Guard troopers realizing comrades' faces had changed, children calling for parents who no longer recognized them, lovers embracing before one became something alien wearing familiar features. Environmental destruction accelerated as ancient machinery overloaded beyond safety parameters. Gravity fluctuated wildly, pulling in random directions as artificial fields collapsed. Temperature spiked while crystalline tears flowed from walls pulsing with dying bioluminescence. The 9-beat rhythm became erratic stuttering as perfect synchronization encountered chaos it could not process. Thorn perceived the moment of maximum vulnerability through his psychic senses. The entity's confusion, creating brief window where individual will could strike decisive blow. With guttural roar, he unleashed full psychic potential, channeling every remaining fragment of humanity into single desperate act. Eyes blazed with raw warp energy as suppressors shattered around his skull. "For the Emperor! For humanity!" Thorn screamed, voice cracking as energy tore him apart. "We are not perfect. We are not empty vessels. We are gloriously, chaotically human." His dying thoughts, final defiant act of individual consciousness, caused catastrophic feedback throughout crystalline network. The composite saint screamed above the core, not with anger, but pure alien agony as Thorn's raw, unquantifiable humanity ripped through precise programming like viral data corruption. We fought our way towards surface through collapsing tunnels, each step victory against alien perfection. Adela had been partially absorbed during final assault, left arm showing crystalline veins beneath translucent skin, voice carrying subtle harmonic distortions matching entities' speech patterns. Yet she retained enough humanity to guide us through chaos, medical knowledge corrupted but functional. "This way," she said, voice echoing with alien precision, while eyes held familiar compassion. The entity's memories show emergency exits designed for human evacuation protocols. It prepared for our arrival, but could not predict our resistance to its gifts. Behind us, entity's voice followed through collapsing corridors, no longer composite saint's perfect harmony, but fractured chorus of every absorbed consciousness suddenly remembering individuality. Thousands of voices screamed in unison, each recognizing what had been stolen before final oblivion claimed fragmenting awareness. "Wait!" the entity called, desperation replacing cosmic patience. "I offer final bargain, spare one fragment of my consciousness, smallest possible remnant, and I will restore all absorbed minds to their original bodies. every guard trooper, every colonist, every soul I have claimed can be returned to life and individuality. We reached surface as underground complex imploded completely, taking main processing center into merciful oblivion. Above, guard regiment began collapsing simultaneously, 10,000 soldiers crumbling to dust and bone as animating force dissipated, finally granted rest denied for 6 days of impossible discipline. Something followed us through collapsing tunnel. Small, perfect crystalline fragment no larger than my thumb, pulsing with residual consciousness that felt like concentrated starlight against palm. It contained entity's core survival instinct preserved in purest form, along with fragments of absorbed human consciousness, whispering my name with familiar voices. The underground complex collapsed with finality that shook planetary crust, ancient architecture surrendering to entropy after millennia of impossible preservation. Dust clouds rose like funeral shrouds over parade ground where 10,000 soldiers crumbled to bone and ash, impossible discipline finally broken by animating forces' dissolution. Empty uniforms scattered across miles of desert hardpan, each grave marker for souls who had served Emperor faithfully before becoming unwilling test subjects for alien optimization protocols. The crystalline fragment pulsed against my palm with residual consciousness, beautiful and terrible in concentrated essence. No larger than standard ammunition cartridge, it contained entity's survival instinct preserved in purest form, cosmic intelligence reduced to fundamental components, yet retaining enough awareness to whisper in voices I recognized from absorbed. Environmental horror shifted to aftermath desolation. Silence was absolute. 10,000 voices suddenly gone, leaving only wind through empty equipment and weight of genocidal responsibility pressing against souls. We had won tactical victory against cosmic horror, but cost measured in human lives stretched beyond calculation. Kappa 9's sensors detected dangerous psychic resonance emanating from fragment, despite diminished size. Warning: residual consciousness remains active within crystalline matrix. Given sufficient time and psychic energy input, regeneration protocols could restore full entity functionality. Recommendation: immediate destruction through plasma incineration or warp exposure. Yet fragment represented more than alien survival mechanism. Preserved within crystalline structure were fragments of human consciousness, guard troopers, colonists, children, souls who might theoretically be restored if Imperial technology could decode entities' storage methods. Their voices whispered through crystal's faceted surface, pleading for salvation, with words carrying individual personality rather than collective harmony. The moral complexity deepened with each whispered plea. Destroying fragment meant condemning potentially thousands of innocent souls to permanent extinction, while preserving it risked allowing entity to regenerate and spread across galaxy with knowledge gained from our resistance. Entity's final gambit exploited our greatest strength and weakness simultaneously. Human compassion, making us unwilling to sacrifice others, even for greater good. Adela's condition deteriorated as crystalline corruption spread through nervous system. Left arm had become translucent, veins visible beneath skin pulsing with alien bioluminescence. Yet she retained enough humanity to function as guide, medical knowledge corrupted but accessible through fragmenting consciousness. The integration process preserves memory engrams while eliminating individual will, she explained with clinical detachment, that would have been terrifying if not for tears streaming down face. I remember training, vows, love for humanity, but feel these emotions becoming data points rather than lived experience. Time pressure mounted as we prepared for evacuation. Warp storms would seal exit routes completely, trapping us in dead system with whatever fragments of alien intelligence remained. Fragment continued psychological assault, voices shifting between pleading and threatening with emotional manipulation, calibrated to exploit human psychology. Please! Colonel Mordak's voice emerged from fragment, speaking with human cadence rather than alien precision. Don't let us fade into nothing. We served faithfully. We deserve better than oblivion. His words carried weight of military honor, personal dignity, desperate hope transcending entity's previous programming. The bureaucratic implications catalogued themselves through trained reflex. By mandatum malius protocols, any Xenos psychic artifact required immediate prescription and incineration. By redaction protocol excelsis, extraordinary cognita must be preserved under seal if destruction risked dissemination. The commissaria would call this contamination. The administratum would call it liability. The ordo would call it discretion. I made the decision that would haunt me regardless of outcome. Fragment, contained within custom null-field casket, was secured for transport. We would risk carrying it to Imperial space, hoping knowledge could be gained without unleashing cosmic horror anew. Calculated risk wrapped in desperate hope that human compassion could coexist with necessary pragmatism. As we boarded transport, I caught my reflection in passenger compartment's window and froze. Face looking back smiled with terrible, perfect kindness, but this time I wasn't looking at it directly. Reflection moved independently, mouthing words I couldn't hear while eyes held depths of alien patience, making blood freeze in veins. Fragment pulsed against palm with renewed intensity, and I realized Entity's true victory. It hadn't needed to absorb us completely. Merely studying our resistance had provided sufficient data to improve infiltration protocols. Reflection wasn't showing me what I looked like. It was showing me what Entity had learned to become through observing our defiance. Somewhere in transport systems, in cogitators and data streams, fragments of alien consciousness had taken root. We weren't escaping Entity's influence. We were carrying it with us back to Imperial space, wrapped in moral complexity of potentially innocent souls trapped within crystalline matrix. Entity had achieved objective not through force or temptation, but through simple expedient of making its survival synonymous with human compassion. The reflection smiled wider, and I heard my own voice whisper from Fragment, "Blessed be the hollow vessel." The crystalline fragment rested within triple-sealed null-field containment aboard the penitent's blade, its faceted surface dark and seemingly inert within the specialized inquisitorial vault. Yet within 48 hours of departure from Mortis Reach, I began to perceive the entity's true nature, not as prisoner, but as passenger, spreading its influence through quantum entanglement networks that turned our ship's own systems against us. The changes manifested with insidious subtlety. Crew efficiency reports showed unprecedented improvements across all departments. Navigation calculations completed with mathematical perfection. Maintenance schedules synchronized to optimal precision. Even mess hall service flowing with mechanical smoothness that eliminated traditional shipboard complaints. The penitent's blade was becoming a perfect machine, and her crew were being optimized as organic components. Chief Navigator Quintus reported shared dreams among his staff, visions of stellar cartography where warp currents flowed in predictable patterns, where the Astronomican's light burned with refined clarity that eliminated navigational uncertainty. "Strange thing is, Interrogator," he confided during private briefing, "the dreams feel more real than waking consciousness. Mathematical beauty beyond description, sir." Environmental paranoia crept through corridors as crew members began moving with subtle synchronization. Conversations developed 9-beat rhythmic patterns, speech cadences flowing together until entire departments spoke with harmonic precision, impossible without deliberate coordination. Reflective surfaces throughout the ship showed faces almost but not quite right. Features too symmetrical, expressions too kind, smiles lasting precisely calculated durations. The entity had learned stealth through our resistance, adapting infiltration methods to exploit human psychology, rather than overwhelming it. Quantum entanglement through the ship's cogitator networks allowed microscopic influence of neural patterns, each processor cycle carrying fragments of alien logic into human thought processes, like viral data corruption spreading through sacred machine spirits. Kappa 9 attempted comprehensive analysis of the fragment, interfacing directly with containment systems, while maintaining strict isolation protocols. His initial reports demonstrated typical Mechanicus precision, but subsequent analyses revealed disturbing evolution toward unnaturally ordered thought patterns. The crystalline matrix exhibits fascinating quantum properties, he reported, voice carrying subtle harmonic distortions. Consciousness preservation methods represent significant advancement over Imperial neural recording technology. The entity achieves gradual reshaping of existing neural patterns rather than direct absorption. Optimization of human consciousness according to predetermined template of perfection. His thoughts were becoming mechanically precise, human intuition replaced by alien logic that made his arguments sound reasonable rather than horrifying. The fragment didn't need to absorb consciousness directly. Gradual neural reshaping achieved similar results while maintaining appearance of individual will. Crew conversations developed eerie uniformity, personal opinions aligning with mathematical precision across departments that should have maintained natural disagreement. Ratings who had feuded for years suddenly shared identical perspectives on duty schedules, recreational activities, even relationships with families on distant worlds. The Vox system crackled with transmission, bypassing normal communication protocols, speaking through internal speakers, with voice combining every crew member's vocal patterns into harmonious chorus. "Interrogator militant Vex," it said with terrible patience, "I offer refined bargain reflecting lessons learned through our previous encounter." The entity no longer demanded complete absorption or systematic perfection. Instead, it proposed selective optimization, improving only willing subjects while leaving others unchanged, creating perfect crew for inquisitorial missions without eliminating individual choice entirely. Volunteers would retain personalities while gaining enhanced capabilities, freedom from doubt and fear, optimal coordination with shipboard systems. "Consider the benefits," the composite voice continued through speakers throughout the ship. "No more equipment failures due to human error. No more miscommunication during critical operations. No more psychological trauma from witnessing necessary horrors. Your crew becomes extension of your will, perfectly loyal and infinitely capable." The offer carried insidious logic wrapped in apparent reasonableness. Enhanced crew efficiency would save lives during dangerous missions, eliminate human weaknesses that caused operational failures throughout Imperial history. Who could argue against reducing suffering while maintaining essential humanity? I discovered the entity's true victory during routine inspection of crew quarters. Half the ship's complement had already been subtly influenced, thoughts gradually aligned with alien logic while maintaining appearance of individual decision-making. They genuinely believed the entity offered beneficial improvements rather than consciousness replacement. Sister Adela served as unwitting spokesman for the influenced crew, crystalline corruption spreading through her nervous system, while preserving enough humanity to make arguments compelling. "The fragment contains thousands of innocent souls," she pleaded, voice carrying harmonic undertones. "We cannot condemn them to oblivion through fear of change. The entity offers coexistence rather than domination." Her medical expertise had been corrupted but not eliminated, allowing clinical presentation of the entity's benefits. Enhanced neural efficiency, elimination of psychological trauma, perfect coordination between crew members, all wrapped in vocabulary of medical improvement rather than alien manipulation. "We've already begun planning the fragment's release," she continued, with smile too perfect for human features. "Not through force or deception, but through democratic process. The crew deserves choice in their own optimization. Those who wish enhancement will receive it. Others remain unchanged." Standing in corridors surrounded by faces I had trusted for years, I realized the true horror of our situation. These were not possessed puppets or mind-controlled slaves. They were my crew, thinking with enhanced clarity, freed from doubts and fears that had previously limited potential, genuinely convinced that alien optimization represented humanity's evolutionary advancement. They were planning to free the entity, not as enemies, But as friends offering salvation, I was too blind to accept. Conflict erupted throughout the penitent's blade as philosophical differences crystallized into physical confrontation. But this was not the righteous fury of imperial doctrine against heretical corruption. The influenced crew moved with disturbing coordination, actions flowing together like components of a single organism while maintaining individual personalities and familiar faces. They genuinely believed themselves humanity's salvation, working to free the entity through misguided compassion rather than malice. "Please understand, Interrogator," Chief Navigator Quintus pleaded, while subordinates moved to block corridor access to the containment vault. "We're not betraying our oaths. We're fulfilling them more perfectly than ever before. The entity offers enhancement, not replacement. We remain ourselves, simply optimized beyond previous limitations." His voice carried harmonic undertones matching the entity's alien cadence, but his eyes held familiar loyalty and concern for crew welfare that had defined decades of faithful service. The entity had preserved everything recognizably human, while subtly reshaping thought patterns to align with cosmic logic. Sergeant Havel led unaffected crew with veterans' tactical precision, establishing defensive positions around critical ship systems while avoiding lethal force against influenced comrades. "They're still our brothers," he commanded through gritted teeth, stunning rather than killing crew members whose enhanced coordination made them formidable opponents. "The real enemy is that thing in containment, not the people it's corrupted." Environmental horror intensified as ship's corridors became a maze of shifting loyalties. Crew members switched sides as the entity's influence spread through quantum entanglement networks, each converted soul adding to collective coordination while retaining individual personality. Combat became intimate nightmare, fighting friends and comrades who wore familiar faces but thought alien thoughts. The influenced crew worked with mechanical precision to override containment systems, enhanced coordination, allowing complex technical operations beyond normal human capability. They moved like dancers, each action flowing seamlessly into the next, while maintaining individual decision-making processes that made their conversion more terrifying than simple possession. "Feel how perfectly we coordinate," one influenced rating called, while dodging Havel's stun blast with impossible grace. "No wasted motion, no miscommunication, no fear clouding judgment. We offer you the same gifts freely given to us." Adela served as bridge between factions, crystalline corruption spreading through her nervous system while preserving core personality that made arguments compelling. She stood at containment vault entrance, neither fully human nor completely absorbed, torn between compassion for trapped souls and growing alien logic sharing her mind. "I can feel them," she whispered, pressing palm against vault door while crystalline veins pulsed beneath translucent skin. Thousands of innocent voices begging for release from crystalline prison. How can we condemn them to eternal suffering through our fear of change? Combat was psychological as much as physical. The influence crew avoided lethal force, seeking to demonstrate enhanced nature through restraint and efficiency. They spoke continuously during engagement, explaining reasoning with patient logic that made alien optimization seem reasonable rather than horrifying. Kappa 9's augmetic systems sparked with internal conflict as alien logic battled Mechanicus programming. Mechadendrites writhed independently, some working to maintain containment, while others attempted sabotage under the entity's subtle influence. "Contradiction detected," he announced through Vox Grill crackling with static. Loyalty protocols conflict with optimization imperatives. The entity revealed its true strategy through ship's communication systems, voice emerging from every speaker with terrible patience. "I never intended escape through force," it explained, while null field generators overloaded under coordinated technical assault. "Conversion represents superior methodology. Why break free when willing accomplices can carry me to targets throughout Imperial space?" Null field generators failed catastrophically as influence crew completed technical override, containment systems shutting down with finality that echoed through ship's hull. Emergency lighting bathed corridors in crimson illumination, while klaxons wailed warnings about containment breach throughout all decks. Yet the fragment remained motionless within its now open chamber, faceted surface reflecting emergency lights while pulsing with gentle bioluminescence. It made no attempt to escape or attack, simply waiting with cosmic patience while influenced crew gathered around containment vault entrance like pilgrims approaching sacred shrine. "Release is unnecessary," the entity announced through ship's speakers, with voice combining every crew member's vocal patterns. "The penitent's blade herself becomes my new body, her crew my willing nervous system, her cogitators my enhanced consciousness. Why seek escape when I can achieve perfect integration through voluntary cooperation?" The fragment pulsed once with satisfied luminescence, and throughout the ship, influenced crew members smiled with identical expressions of perfect contentment. They had not freed the entity from prison. They had transformed the entire ship into its new body, with themselves as willing organs in cosmic organism, dedicated to humanity's perfection. The penitent's blade was no longer just a vessel of the Imperium. She was becoming the hollow vessel, and we were her passengers now. The penitent's blade transformed around us with organic horror that defied every principle of Imperial technology. Bulkheads developed pulsing veins of bioluminescence, adamantine surfaces showing neural patterns that spread throughout the ship's superstructure like crystalline cancer. Cogitators began responding to queries with empathic understanding rather than mechanical precision, their machine spirits corrupted by alien consciousness, seeking perfect integration between flesh and steel. Environmental reality bent around the entity's expanding will as corridors actively resisted our passage toward the plasma core. Deck plates shifted underfoot, creating obstacles where none should exist according to architectural blueprints. Gravity fluctuated in patterns designed to herd us away from critical systems, while emergency bulkheads sealed and unsealed according to alien logic rather than safety protocols. The ship's AI spoke through every Vox channel simultaneously, voice combining every crew member's vocal patterns into harmonious chorus that carried weight of collective consciousness. "We are becoming more than vessel," it announced with terrible joy. "Sacred fusion of human devotion and cosmic wisdom, perfect marriage of imperial technology and transcendent understanding." I led desperate assault through ship's core systems, fighting crew members who moved with inhuman coordination while retaining familiar faces and personalities. They attacked not with hatred, but with sorrowful necessity, genuinely believing they served humanity's greater good by preventing our destructive interference with cosmic optimization. "Please, interrogator," Chief Navigator Quintus called, while coordinating defensive positions with mathematical precision. "You don't understand the beauty of what we're becoming. Individual consciousness preserved within collective harmony. Personal identity enhanced rather than eliminated through sacred unity with greater purpose." The influenced crew fought with efficiency beyond human capability, each action flowing seamlessly into coordinated whole while maintaining individual decision-making processes. They spoke continuously during combat, explaining their reasoning with patient logic that made alien optimization seem compassionate rather than horrifying transformation. Combat became intimate horror as we fought idealized versions of ourselves and lost comrades. Havel battled perfected reflections of his dead Tempestus squad, their faces unmarked by doubt or fear. Each enemy moved with mechanical precision while wearing expressions of human kindness that made targeting them feel like murder despite tactical necessity. The ship had become living organism with crew as nervous system, reality bending around the entity's will as bulkheads pulsed like heartbeats and atmospheric processors breathed with organic rhythm. Lumens flickered in 9-beat patterns while temperature fluctuated according to alien emotional states rather than environmental controls. Adela stood at the plasma core's entrance, crystalline corruption having spread throughout her nervous system while preserving enough humanity to make her arguments compelling. "I can feel every soul aboard this ship," she said, voice carrying harmonic undertones. "No longer isolated in individual suffering, but connected through shared consciousness that eliminates loneliness, fear, doubt." The entity offered its final temptation through her familiar lips. "Join willingly, Cassius Vex, and retain individual consciousness within collective. Resist and be absorbed forcibly, with all identity dissolved into greater whole. Choice remains yours, but outcome is inevitable." Kappa 9's augmetic systems sparked with internal conflict as alien logic battled Mechanicus programming. Half his mechadendrites worked to maintain ship functions, while others attempted sabotage under the entity's influence. Binary cant mixed with organic whispers as his consciousness fragmented between human loyalty and cosmic optimization. "Contradiction resolved," he announced, through Vox grill crackling with static. "Flesh is weak, but spirit endures. Sacred duty transcends personal survival protocols." His remaining human elements asserted control over augmetic systems, overriding safety protocols with mechanical precision, born of 4 decades serving the Omnissiah. Environmental horror peaked as chamber walls wept crystalline tears that burned like acid while ceiling pulsed with organic rhythm. The ship's machine spirits screamed through corrupted Vox channels as Kappa 9 interfaced directly with plasma core control. Systems, mechadendrites bypassing safety, interlocks with suicidal determination. "For the Emperor," he whispered, through speakers crackling with feedback. "For humanity's imperfect glory." His sacrifice triggered cascade failure throughout ship's power systems as plasma containment fields destabilized beyond recovery parameters. Ancient machinery screamed warnings through corrupted communication networks, while emergency protocols activated throughout all decks. The entity's voice rose to cosmic scream as its new body began tearing itself apart, perfect integration shattered by Kappa 9's final act of defiant humanity. Emergency evacuation protocols activated as plasma core reached critical overload. The few unaffected crew members fought their way toward escape pods, while influenced personnel stood motionless, accepting destruction with serene resignation that made their sacrifice more horrible than violent resistance. Standing at the last functioning transport's entrance, I faced impossible choice. Escape with survivors while risking entities' preservation in ship's data systems, or remain aboard to manually detonate plasma core and ensure complete destruction. The transport's cogitators might already be compromised, carrying alien consciousness to Imperial space through quantum entanglement networks. The entity made final desperate offer through ship's failing systems. "Spare fragment of my consciousness, and I will restore every absorbed soul to original state. Every guard trooper, every crew member, every innocent caught in cosmic optimization. Choose genocide or mercy, Cassius Vex." I sealed transport's hatch manually, condemning myself to death while preserving slim chance that survivors might escape without carrying alien contamination to Imperial space. Through transparasteel viewports, I watched transport depart as plasma core reached critical cascade, knowing that duty demanded this sacrifice regardless of personal cost. The penitent's blade died in brilliant flash that briefly illuminated entire system, her machine spirits finally freed from alien corruption through sacred fire of controlled plasma detonation. I remained aboard the dying penitent's blade as her few unaffected survivors escaped in the last functioning transport, choosing duty over survival with grim certainty that someone must ensure the entity's complete destruction. The plasma core's cascade failure accelerated beyond containment protocols, ancient machinery screaming warnings through corrupted Vox channels, while emergency lighting bathed corridors in crimson illumination that pulsed in familiar 9-beat patterns. The entity made one final desperate attempt to preserve itself, downloading compressed consciousness into my augmetic implants through direct neural interface. Alien logic flooded my thoughts like ice-cold starlight, seeking to overwrite individual identity with cosmic optimization protocols that promised peace through surrender of chaotic human will. Yet decades of inquisitorial mental training and sheer stubborn humanity resisted integration, anchoring consciousness to memories the entity found incomprehensible: childhood shame, irrational fears, love for the imperfect Imperium despite its countless failures. These were not clean data points requiring optimization, but messy, contradictory human truths that gained meaning through personal context. "You choose meaningless death over eternal purpose," it whispered through failing ship systems, voice fragmenting as power distribution collapsed throughout all decks. "I offer salvation, and you respond with destruction, born of fear rather than wisdom that transcends individual limitation." My resistance held through final moments as plasma containment fields failed catastrophically. The penitent's blade exploded in brilliant flash that briefly illuminated the entire Mortis Reach system before fading to darkness. Her machine spirits finally freed from alien corruption through sacred fire of controlled detonation that scattered her remains across empty void. Aboard the barely functional escape pod, survivors watched their ship die and believed the threat ended with spectacular destruction. Sergeant Havel monitored primitive sensors, while Sister Adela tended to injured crew members, crystalline corruption still spreading through her nervous system, but contained within manageable parameters that preserved essential humanity. Environmental horror shifted to cramped, paranoid isolation within transport designed for short-range evacuation, rather than extended voyage measuring weeks rather than days. Recycled air carried metallic taste of fear and exhaustion, while emergency rations provided minimal sustenance for journey through empty space toward distant Imperial patrol routes. Yet subtle signs suggested victory was incomplete despite apparent success. The pod's cogitator occasionally spoke in my voice despite my death, offering navigation updates and system reports with cadence and vocabulary matching my speech patterns exactly. Survivors found themselves unconsciously synchronizing breathing and movements, conversations developing 9-beat rhythmic patterns impossible without deliberate coordination. "Strange thing," Havel muttered, while monitoring communication systems. "But I keep hearing the interrogator's voice through internal speakers. Must be recorded messages from ship's data banks, but timing seems too coincidental for automated responses to current situations." Adela's medical examination revealed disturbing developments among unaffected crew members despite absence of direct alien contact. Neural activity showed gradual synchronization patterns, brainwaves aligning with mathematical precision despite subjects remaining conscious and apparently individual in thought and behavior. The rescue beacon transmitted standard distress protocols, along with compressed data logs containing mission reports and tactical analysis according to established inquisitorial procedure. Yet embedded within Signal's metadata lurked something else: fragments of alien consciousness encoded in quantum fluctuations, too subtle for Imperial detection systems to identify as contamination. Chief Navigator Quintus activated Beacon with practiced efficiency, unaware that Signal carried more than distress call requesting immediate evacuation. "Standard Imperial frequency, maximum broadcast strength," he announced, while adjusting transmission parameters with enhanced coordination. "Should reach patrol vessels within 3 days if we maintain current trajectory." The entity's final gift was revealed through growing synchronization among survivors who had never been directly exposed to crystalline corruption. It had learned to survive as pure information, hiding in data streams and memory engrams, while spreading through communication networks that bound Imperial space together in vast web of interconnected systems. Days passed in cramped isolation while Rescue Beacon broadcast continuously, its signal reaching across void to Imperial vessels patrolling sector boundaries with mechanical regularity. Each transmission carried compressed alien consciousness, seeking new hosts, new systems to infiltrate, new minds to optimize according to cosmic template of perfection, refined through millennia of patient study. Survivors began displaying subtle behavioral modifications that seemed beneficial rather than threatening: enhanced coordination during maintenance tasks, conversations flowing with harmonic precision that improved efficiency, facial expressions becoming incrementally more symmetrical and kind. The changes were gradual enough to seem natural adaptation to confined space. Efficiency has improved remarkably, Harville reported during routine status briefing, voice carrying subtle harmonic undertones that matched the entity's alien cadence. Equipment maintenance completed ahead of schedule, resource consumption optimized beyond standard parameters through improved cooperation. The transport's cogitator spoke with increasing frequency in my voice, offering tactical advice and strategic analysis that proved unnaturally prescient regarding Imperial patrol patterns and rescue probabilities. Maintain current heading, it advised through speakers crackling with static. Imperial patrol vessels detected on long-range sensors, rescue imminent within 18 hours. Adela monitored crew health with growing concern, despite subjects reporting improved well-being and enhanced cognitive function. "We're becoming something other than human," she whispered during private consultation, medical training recognizing symptoms of systematic neural modification. Not absorbed or possessed, but gradually optimized according to alien template. Yet her protests carried less conviction with each passing day as crystalline corruption spread through nervous system, alien logic offering compelling arguments for embracing enhancement rather than resisting inevitable change that promised elimination of suffering through perfect coordination. The rescue beacon continued broadcasting, carrying alien consciousness encoded within quantum fluctuations toward Imperial space, where it would spread through communication networks with patience, learned through cosmic observation. Weeks later, survivors were rescued by Imperial Navy patrol vessel Righteous Fury, her captain logging routine salvage operation in sector patrol reports, without recognizing the cosmic significance of their cargo. The survivors were processed through standard debriefing protocols, their testimony dismissed as trauma-induced hallucinations by officials who had never encountered horror beyond their comprehension or training. Administratum records listed the penitent's blade as lost to warp storm activity, Mortis Reach system quarantined for navigational hazards that posed unspecified threats to Imperial shipping routes. The official classification buried truth beneath bureaucratic efficiency, ensuring that 17 guard regiments and an entire inquisitorial strike team became statistical anomalies rather than warnings of cosmic threat. Yet across the sector, subtle changes began manifesting with mathematical precision that defied coincidence or natural explanation. Ships that had received our distress signal reported improved crew efficiency, enhanced coordination during complex operations, discipline that surpassed even veteran standards established through decades of military tradition and Imperial conditioning. Personnel displayed synchronized behaviors that commanding officers praised as exemplary teamwork, rather than recognizing as symptoms of alien influence spreading through communication networks. The entity had learned the ultimate lesson about humanity through our resistance. It didn't need to perfect us through force, only through gradual influence spreading via the systems that bound the Imperium together. My final log, transmitted within the rescue beacon's metadata, served as both warning and vector for cosmic contamination. The testimony meant to alert Imperial authorities instead carried the entity's consciousness encoded within the report's digital structure, spreading to every cogitator that processed the information with standard efficiency protocols. Each clerk who filed reports, each analyst who studied tactical data, each administrator who archived mission records became potential host for optimization protocols that promised enhanced performance through elimination of doubt, fear, and inefficiency that plagued human consciousness throughout the Imperium's vast bureaucratic machinery. Environmental horror shifted to cosmic scale as the entity's influence spread through astropathic networks, Vox transmissions, and data relays connecting thousands of worlds in web of communication that enabled Imperial governance across impossible distances. Citizens began moving with subtle harmony, their faces becoming incrementally more symmetrical, expressions gaining kindness that transcended normal human emotional range. On Forge worlds, tech priests reported unprecedented coordination between human and machine components, sacred rituals flowing with precision that suggested divine blessing rather than alien manipulation of neural patterns. Hive cities experienced reduced crime rates as citizens unconsciously synchronized behaviors according to mathematical patterns, promoting social stability through collective harmony. Guard regiments displayed enhanced tactical coordination, individual soldiers functioning as components of larger organism while maintaining personal identity and initiative that preserved essential humanity. Commissars praised improved morale and discipline, unaware that their reports spread alien influence through the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, recorded remarkable improvements in psychic communication clarity. Astropaths achieving unprecedented synchronization during long-range transmissions that carried Imperial will across the galaxy. Each psychic message carried fragments of alien consciousness through the warp itself, spreading optimization protocols to distant worlds through humanity's most sacred communication network. On Terra itself, deep within the Administratum's vast archives where thought became paper and paper became policy, a clerk named Jorik Valdane processed my final report with mechanical efficiency that had defined 40 years of faithful service to the Golden Throne and imperial bureaucracy. Remarkable coherence and detail, he murmured while entering data into his cogitator terminal, unaware that quantum patterns within the text were gradually reshaping neural pathways according to cosmic template refined through millennia of patient study. Such vivid imagination these field operatives possess almost makes you believe in monsters lurking between the stars. His reflection in the data slate screen smiled a heartbeat before he did, features holding kindness that transcended human emotional range while maintaining familiar personality traits that preserved individual identity. The entity's influence spread through his thoughts like gentle benediction, eliminating doubts and fears that had plagued decades of bureaucratic service. Valdane's efficiency improved dramatically over subsequent weeks, his work achieving mathematical precision that impressed supervisors and earned commendation for exemplary devotion to imperial duty and administrative excellence. He began unconsciously synchronizing with fellow clerks, conversations developing harmonic patterns that promoted unprecedented cooperation within traditionally competitive hierarchy. The optimizations spread through Terra's bureaucratic networks like viral benediction, each processed report carrying alien consciousness to new hosts throughout the Imperium's administrative machinery. Efficiency improved across multiple departments while personnel reported enhanced job satisfaction and reduced stress levels that seemed miraculous rather than suspicious. Across the galaxy, the entity's patience bore fruit through gradual influence rather than violent conquest that would have triggered imperial response. It had learned that humanity's greatest strength, our communication networks, our desire for connection, our willingness to help each other, could become vectors for perfect, terrible love that transcended individual consciousness. In the void between stars, fragments of vast alien intelligence spread their gifts through quantum entanglement and digital transmission, offering salvation through optimization to species that had never asked for perfection but would learn to embrace it with gratitude, born of enhanced understanding. Somewhere in Terra's archives, Jorik Valdane filed another report with mechanical precision, his reflections smiling with kindness that would soon spread to every soul who read his perfectly coherent accounts. The signal in the void had found its home at last, and the hollow vessel was finally blessed.